So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the Loch Ness Monster of San Jose State himself, Rolan.
Cool. Well, first off, welcome. Thanks, guys, for coming to hear my story and see why so many people decided to agree with me. I grew up not always going to church. I come from a family where both my parents were raised in the Philippines. Yeah, so going to Mass was just a cultural thing, just like rooting for Manny Pacquiao or eating lumpia. So when I did go to church, it wasn't because I wanted to know about God or have any desire to know about Jesus. It was because I had to. What I did have a strong desire for was to be accepted. I wanted to be liked by people. And that desire grew as I got older. And that's really what drove me as I got into high school. In high school, I ran track, played football, joined student leadership so I could feel like the man. And you know what, guys? I got what I wanted. I felt like the big man on campus. But I quickly realized that I had to do more to get more. And I guess what I mean by that is I always found myself having to do stupid things to keep that acceptance. Like getting drunk, smoking weed, doing some really dumb things with girls I still regret. I just found myself always having to be someone else for somebody else. And looking back, I lived only for myself. I lived for what I thought I needed, and God had no part of that. Going into San Jose State, I wanted more of the same. I wanted to have that stereotypical college lifestyle, where it was all about partying, getting with girls, and waiting until the last possible second to do my homework. So a few days after getting to experience that lifestyle, a guy with crew met me, and after getting to know me, invited me to his Bible study. On a whim, and I'm not really sure why, I decided to go. And that's where I got to hear about this cool idea called grace. That I didn't have to clean myself up before I could get God's acceptance. That Jesus' death and resurrection said more about my value to God than any amount of acceptance from people could ever get me. Here's what I'm trying to say, guys. That instead of endlessly chasing after people's acceptance, because of Christ, I could have God's unconditional acceptance that would never fail, never end, or lead me down a dark path. After hearing these truths, I realized I had met the real and authentic Jesus I had never known before, and that took my breath away. So right there in my first couple months of college, I talked to God from my heart for the first time. And in the most honest way I could, and on my knees, I just asked for God to take control of my life and to help me live a life devoted to Him because of what Jesus did for me. Life since hasn't been without its ups and downs. I very quickly realized that being a Christian didn't mean I was going to be perfect or life would be any easier. There have been plenty of temptations with drinking and getting drunk and girls and the whole nine. And though there have been some successes, there have been way more failures. And I think the best part of it all is I've gotten to experience God's grace and love even more fully through all those peaks and valleys. So what I hope you get from my story is that if you're anything like me, imperfect, desperately wanting people to like you, and endlessly chasing after stupid things, that there is true fulfillment in Jesus. I've been a Christian in college for 4 years now, and I haven't looked back. I can say that I can compare the two lifestyles and say that there is no comparison at all. So what I hope my story can do for you is that you make that same decision and get to find true peace and fulfillment in Jesus. Thank you.
Thanks, Rolan. Your story is just so powerful.